Welcome to Sacred Dive with me, Evangeline. I'm glad you're here. I've decided to invite Rufus to be here today. This is Rufus. You can't really see his little face, but there's his eyes. Who knows? Maybe he'll help today. What you think, little buddy? You. Oh yeah, he wants to help. So today I'd like to talk about this idea of being with what's coming up. You know, that can sound sort of nebulous or just like words. You know, how do you actually do that? What does that mean to be with an emotion that's coming up, fear that's coming up, you name it. Because of course in spirituality, it's like that being present with this thing coming through us. It has like it's like an alchemy, and our presence can just dissolve that unconsciousness, that pain inside of us. Eckhart Tolle talks about this a lot with the pain body and dissolving the pain body. So I believe I'm going to divide this into several videos, a couple days, and before we get into the actual how to do that, I think it's good to give a caveat. And I only heard this caveat after I had been going to quite a few Adyashanti retreats. And so the idea is that when you're being with something inside of us, and first of all, just realize that we are absolutely conditioned to not be with what is inside of us. We're conditioned to distract, to push it down, to soldier on, because largely we're all consumed in the world of form. We're about outward fruition, and when these strong emotions, feelings come up, they sort of seem to get in the way, of our outward bound manifestation in the world. So, incredible amounts of energy go into distracting ourselves or pushing down emotions, etc. So what I'm talking about here is it's almost like a complete turnaround, a complete reversal of how we're used to operating. What I'm talking about is like, instead of when something powerful comes up, instead of distracting by reading or eating or watching TV or chatting or going for a walk, instead of all those things, you actually bring your presence, your consciousness to it. And there's an important thing to know. So here, when you do something like that, it's actually the presence. It's your inner light, your inner peace that can actually be with whatever's coming up. And so it's important to, when you embark on like a practice like that, a practice of being with what's coming up inside, it's important to understand that it is actually the presence that dissolves that unconsciousness. And so when you start, you want to make sure that there's enough presence, that you actually have enough presence inside to be with whatever's coming up. Because what can happen is if there's not, say something really big, say a true panic attack is coming up, or deep depression, or something is coming up that feels overwhelming, it's good to check, and if there's not actually enough presence, or I would call it adult presence, consciousness there to be with that, it's actually ill-advised to try to make yourself be with something. I'm going to let Rufus sit on my lap here. You can't see him, but he's here. So it's ill-advised to to try to force yourself to be present with something if you don't actually have that presence within you. The effect can be actually a retraumatization of that energy, of that wherever that energy was sort of crystallized inside of you. So, a good practice is to, before you would sit down to be with something, is just kind of take a look, like, do I have the presence or the wherewithal, the peace to be with whatever is here? And just that is like, that's the beginning of a foray into integrity, because you would want to answer that question really honestly. And then when you find that, say there's a yes, like, yes, I do have the presence to be here. You can kind of fine tune that by, again, with this integrity, taking a look and just being like, okay, like, what percentage of this strong emotion coming up, what percentage do I have the capacity to be with that? And it could be anywhere from, okay, I can be with 1% to I have the capacity for 90% of this emotion coming up. And then once you've found that, you can declare that. You can declare it. I am willing, I am able to be with 5% of this sadness right now. And there's something that tends to hear that and respect that. And that's what you'll be given. And so that it just begins to build, just that question itself begins to build an integrity and a capacity to look inside and say, okay, what in reality, what am I able to be with right now? And if you have like a nothing, if there's truly no capacity to be with what's coming up, don't try to force it, because what kind of happens there is there's like this sub part of you that's not actually presence trying to be with a traumatized other sub part of you. And it's just not the way to go. It's not healing. So say that happens and you don't have the presence to be with something, there's like a kindness there, like, okay, I don't have it in me today, right now, this week. And in a case like that, it's really useful to distract. It tends to be, we're told, like, don't distract, when you're on this inner journey. But in this sort of case, it can be really good. Maybe you listen to a useful YouTube video. Maybe you go for a walk. Maybe you cook. Do something that, maybe you clean. You do something that kind of feels good, and you usually feel good doing it, but it doesn't require you to be fully present with whatever's coming up. All right. I love getting to be with you, and I will be back tomorrow, presumably to talk about this actual, like, say you do have the presence to be with something, or you have this percentage. We'll talk about what does that look like? What can that look like? All right, good people. I love y'all.